Let's be honest, there's no guidebook when it comes to relationships. So we end up having to stumble through life trying to figure things out for ourselves. What if there was a podcast that found the answers for you, that provided insight to build a successful relationship and ultimately find the companionship you've always hoped for? Welcome to the Girls Ask Guys show, where we answer the questions most people are afraid to ask when it comes to lessons in life and love. It's time to master this thing called life together with your hosts, John and Ashley.
And welcome back, all of you gagsters. Hey, we all know what it's like when we have a breakup or we separate from somebody that we've been going out with for a really long time, and we kind of have that depression and we just don't want to take care of ourselves. Well, today's guest is well known on Instagram and Facebook. She can be found at Sharla Mandere Coaching. Formerly living in stress and overwhelmed as a business owner and mom, she is now a coach and speaker who helps stressed out parents put self-care practices in place so they can stop beating themselves up and live a confident, balanced, and happy life. She's also a former professional music theater performer and competitive rock climber. So please welcome to the show, Sharla Mandere. And before I forget, you can also find her at radiantsunrisewellness.com.
Her website is pretty cool, though, so definitely check it out. It gives you a lot of info on who she is, but also all the services she offers, and we'll talk about those a little in the show. But Sharla, I think everything you do is incredible. So you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Thank you. Yeah. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So yeah, like you said in the package, I'm a former professional musical theater performer,
awesome.
Which is way fun, and competitive rock climber because I get bored easily and I can't just do one thing. And once I became a mom, I have two children, and both times I had really debilitating postpartum depression. And I don't know if anyone listening has had to deal with postpartum depression. I hope you have not, but if you have, it can be hard and scary, and there's a lot of guilt around that. And so I had to find ways to help myself so that I didn't fall into old patterns, like from when I was back in college or whatever. And I was, again, battling anxiety and depression. And I actually had an eating disorder when I was in graduate school. And it was one of the reasons that I decided ultimately to leave the graduate program, because it was just such an unhealthy space for me to be in. And so I've had many times in my life where I've had to come out from this fog, come out from this funk of just feeling stuck, feeling hopeless, and feeling like my life was spinning out of control, which anyone who's had a newborn, it's very easy to feel like your life is spinning out of control if you are sleep deprived on top of it. And so, being able to do the work on myself and practice the care and love that I give to my children on myself has really helped me. And I had lots of friends and family members and then people online saying, well, how were you able to do that? And so I decided to start a business to help people because ultimately that's what I love to do. And so here I am.
Wow. That's just going through all that and then being able to turn that around so that you can share that with others and help them move forward with their own lives.
Yeah. I realized I probably am not the only one, right? That's
one thing that me and Ashley have addressed on previous episodes, this season 2. So anybody listening, they're going to have to go back to season 1. But if you're not happy by yourself, the Prince Charming or the princess is not going to ride in and make your life automatically rain chocolates and rainbows. You have to be happy with who you are before you can truly be happy with somebody else.
Right. Exactly. And to not be able to put your happiness on this other person, right? There's a lot of pressure in a relationship.
It is a lot of pressure. I've told people that, that's too much. You can't expect someone else to make you happy all the time because they have, and this is, even if you're married, that person has their own stuff to deal. They have their own internal battles they're fighting. They have their own internal self-hate that they're fighting. To put your happiness on them too is just taxing. And that's why when you're not happy, it doesn't work out.
Right.
Yeah. Our Instagram and our Twitter is around the dating and relationship. So we get a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I'm single and I'm unhappy. I'm single and here's my dating pool, and it's a picture of a pool and it's completely empty.
Yeah,
I mean,
those are funny. I like those memes.
Sometimes I just want to reach through the screen and just shake the person and go, why are you doing this to yourself? If you can't be happy by yourself, nobody else is going to be able to do it.
You shouldn't want anyone else to do it. Like, you should want to wake up and be happy. You know what I mean? That's another thing. That's one of those fairy tale bullshit things we see in movies where, oh my God, this person completes me. Do you know how wonderful it is to wake up happy and not like
go back
be
and
depressed?
listen to episode 1.
You know,
and you complete me. No,
right.
Bullshit. That person is there to enhance your life, not complete your life.
And that's the whole thing. I think when you talk about postpartum depression and, you know, things like that, those are clinical. And I want to make a brief distinction, especially with you here, because some people don't understand that you can't just shake those things off. And delving into a relationship doesn't necessarily, or not even necessarily, doesn't help. So, like, can you elaborate on the feelings you felt during your postpartum depression?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of what I didn't have the absolute worst.
Right.
Postpartum. There's many, many different levels. There's postpartum depression. There's postpartum anxiety. There's actually now they're diagnosing moms with PTSD from, and this is what my doctor actually had said to me after my first. I ended up after a very, very long labor and an emergency C-section, which was very, very scary and traumatic for me. And then there were some things going on. She said, you know, it almost sounds like you have PTSD. She goes, I don't want to overuse the term. And that was the first that I had really heard of that. And then a couple of years later, I was talking to a few mom friends, and they said, my doctor said I have PTSD from having this babe, where there's this guilt around it because you think, well, this is nature, right? I'm a mom and my body is made to do this. And women have been doing this since literally Adam and Eve. Like, this is, you know, this is what technically we're supposed to do for ever and ever to reproduce. And so why am I feeling this way? And there becomes this guilt that you're not this picture perfect Instagram model mom, that there's something wrong with you, or that you're going to be terrible at this and your kids are going to end up, you know, in prison or something, right? That like, you're totally going to screw them up, you know, and there becomes all these, motherhood ignites these fears and worries in you that you didn't even know could exist. And if I tell my friends, like, that don't have kids, now there's a paranoia that you didn't even know, a level of paranoia and just taking your children to the park that you didn't even know could possibly exist, that exists once you become a mom. And I will say, like, there's different levels, like I said, right, where if you need to reach out to a doctor and get medication for help, by all means do it. I'm a holistic health coach, but I'm not so holistic that I'm like, don't ever use medication, because if you need it, you need it, and know that it can be temporary, right? But if you need to go do that, and if you are in the mindset of where you may harm yourself or your baby or someone else, please go and do all the things that the doctor needs to do to get the help. I wasn't at that quite level, but I cried constantly. It took me a very long time to bond with my baby. And my husband works restaurant, and so he was brand new at this job. He had literally just finished training, and I went into labor. He was like a week on the job, and I went into labor, and so he really couldn't take much time off. And the day after we got home from the hospital, he had to go back to work. So he didn't get any kind of a leave, just when I was in the hospital. That was it. And the day after we got home, he was back to work. So all of a sudden, I was alone in my house with this baby that I'd babysat since I was 13. I used to teach children. Like, I thought I got this, but all of a sudden and I was recovering from a surgery that I didn't plan on, and was very traumatic for me mentally, but also physically. And just things like getting in and out of the shower hurt so bad. That it just and you're not sleeping, you are totally it adds a whole nother level to it. And so, I really had to reach out for help is one thing that I did. I reached out for support. I did go to my doctor. They didn't quite think that I needed medication. They said, maybe you should go talk to someone. So I did go and talk to a few people. And I reached out to friends, and I started just kind of saying like, well, and I had some friends that were like, well, no, I mean, you just put them down and they nap.
Like, you're like, yeah, okay. And then they roll over and fall and die. And
yeah,
what?
That probably happens in Leave It to Beaver.
Right.
I mean, everybody's baby is different. Like mine was very colicky and was screaming all night, whereas my friends who had babies a few months prior to me, their babies were not. So they did go to sleep like the book said, but I stopped reading books. That was the other thing. I had been reading every parenting book, every baby book, every how to get them to sleep and what they should be eating and how much they should be eating and pooping. And I was obsessive about it. And I had to stop. I stopped reading the books and I stopped looking online. I took a social media detox. Of course, this was my oldest is 10 now. So there was no Instagram, I believe, or if there was, I wasn't on it. And I wasn't a Facebook kind of a thing, you know. So I wasn't on as much as maybe we are today, but I took a break, and honestly, I was able to kind of change my diet around, and I started exercising. And you know, just we lived at the time, we were in a beach town in San Diego, so I lived where I could walk to like the bay, which I thought was really pretty, and I would put her in like the carrier, and we would go walk, and then eventually I got her in the stroller, and I would run. But that did how I would go like 4 or 5 times a day. I'd be like, oh, we got to get out of the house, you know, and so we would go walk. And I wouldn't always make it. We were about, I don't know, 7, 8 blocks away from the bay. So I would sometimes just go walk around the block or something. But I found outside the fresh air helped her, helped me. And I just took everything one day at a time and tried to really make sure that I was cognizant of what I was feeling and when I needed help. If that makes sense, you know, like what I needed and when I needed it. And it didn't happen overnight, but you know, eventually I was able to pull myself out of that, but really taking the stigma off of, hey, I'm not okay right now. And maybe this is super easy for you as mom, but it's not easy for me. And so find another, you know, you have to kind of find a tribe, right? Find those other friends who are in the same phase of life as you, that I had to maybe make the decision to not be with those friends that hadn't yet had babies that did not get at all where I was, or even the friends that had like a 7-year-old and didn't quite remember where I was. That if they were acting like you're fine, then it made me feel worse. It made me feel like, well, I should be fine, but I'm not fine. So why were they fine? You know what I mean? And that comparison game. Yeah. So but for me, what worked a lot for me was changing my diet around, getting clean eating, and really focusing on just moving my body every day. That was big for me.
I know that's somewhat of what worked for me, and overcoming, or not really overcoming, but dealing with my PTSD.
You know, and PTSD can happen even like acutely, like if you say witness a car accident on a certain street, that maybe going down that street causes some anxiety in you for a little bit. Call that acute PTSD, where just certain, you know, little areas. I actually had a situation at a grocery store where a man had apparently had a heart attack. I came around the corner and he was on the ground, and people were trying to, and we ended up doing CPR on him. And like, how you don't think that that's going to happen? Thank God I've been CPR certified since I'm 18, but I ended up, that was the first time that I've ever had to use it. And there was like the next probably 6 trips into the grocery store. First, I couldn't walk into the grocery store. Like my heart would start pounding and I would start sweating, and I was like, what is going on with me? And then I could go into the store, but I couldn't go down that aisle for a while. And then every time I walked past that aisle, I would look like, is somebody on the ground? Is this is where it happened, you know? And then, and now it's been a few years, and so I'm able to freely move around the grocery store. But even little things like if you know, if there's something traumatic that happens in a certain space. You have that acute PTSD where you have to avoid that little situation. When you're a mom, you can't avoid.
Yeah. And
you can't really avoid your baby. You can't, you've got to work through it.
When I was actively coaching on how to meet somebody or in dating, I'd be working with somebody who came out of what was a good relationship that then turned into a bad relationship. And now we're trying to teach them how to interact again. Yeah, they couldn't go to like a certain bar or a certain restaurant or a certain club because as soon as they go there, those emotions come back. It's kind of interesting for somebody who's never experienced anything like that. It's emotionally connected.
Well, and like the emotional connection too, like you're saying, like if, when I have clients who maybe they've recently been through just a breakup where the relationship didn't get physical or didn't, nothing terribly bad happened, but maybe they got broken up with. But this was our favorite song, or this was our favorite restaurant, or that movie was the first date, and and the just being in those areas bring that pang of I still want to be with this person, but they don't want to be with me, and so you feel those emotions even without any specific like really hard trauma, but it's still emotional, right?
Yeah, I've seen that happen with people that have gone through divorces.
Yeah.
I imagine teenagers
and so
are
the
the worst.
focus has to come back. The focus has to come back to yourself, right? And finding a way to get some closure for yourself on how, you can be okay moving through, drive past that restaurant or even eat at that restaurant with friends without those feelings.
Yeah, either it's feelings of guilt, just emotional overwhelming, or feeling like you're actually cheating on that other person.
Right.
It's one of those really hard things to overcome. And like we were talking about earlier, those are the kind of things that we see or that I see coming across on Twitter and Instagram. And even to a point, even on TikTok, you see those breakup videos or even the videos that I've seen where I'm over 40, my life is over. There's nobody out there for me.
Right.
It's not true. There's somebody out there. You just have to be open and willing, not only to look at yourself, but also put yourself out there and actually take a small risk.
Right. And then kind of ask yourself, like, is this the right time for someone to be there for me? I mean, if you're a 40-year-old and you're on Twitter and you're self-deprecating, I highly doubt you're ready for a relationship unless that's like your job. If you're like Rodney Dangerfield, yeah, of course, that's his job. He's hilarious. He's self-deprecating and people love it and it makes money. But if you're severely depressed and 40 and, on Twitter ranting about how nobody cares about you, you can't sit there and wonder why nobody's approaching you. And I think that kind of goes into us talking about self-care and how important it is because I know as I'm going into my 30s and getting a little older piece by piece, I see it becoming harder to take care of yourself. Number one, you're distracted with work, you're distracted with family, you're distracted with all kinds of things. So like self-care almost takes a back seat as you get older. So I guess the thing would be give us maybe if you can give us one of the first steps to self-care. What do you think one of the first things people would do with self-care is?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great segue into, the self-care. The thing that I run into a lot with that I hear from clients is that they feel like when I'm talking self-care and we're talking about it, that they get overwhelmed in thinking that it has to be so time consuming, right? Like I'm talking like eat, pray, love, like we're going to go to an ashram in India for a year and that's what it takes. Or I'm going to tell you that you have to meditate for an hour and a half every day, and,
no.
and all these things. And really, if it just comes to little bits every day, if you can do 10 to 20 minutes a day, right, then you're going to feel different. You're going to reset your mindset and you're going to feel better. So our brain has these nerves and they connect and they fire. And so when we have habits, those nerves fire in a certain way. And in order to create true habit change in terms, especially if we're talking like you were talking about self-deprecating humor and like negative self-talk, right? What was called in the coaching world, negative self-talk in the coaching world. Yeah. In order to change that and stop like beating ourselves up, we have to spend more time. They say you're the you're the result of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, nowadays that also includes the things you listen to, podcasts like this, or, little videos on YouTube, right? It doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. There's plenty of 10-minute YouTube videos that can start to change your mindset. And if you do a 10-minute meditation or affirmations, that will start to refire those neurons and change the way the brain chemistry, so that you start to just catch yourself more and then before you know it, you go, oh, that's a familiar feeling that I haven't felt in a while, right?
Yeah.
For something negative. Or you're around maybe a friend you haven't seen in a while because you had removed yourself from a person that didn't make you feel really good. And then you see them again and go, oh man, I haven't felt that feeling in a while. Because you've been doing the work, right? You've been working on yourself. But it doesn't take a long time. So like 10 to 20 minutes a day is all I tell them. I don't try to like add to people's plate, right? I try not to be like, let me give you 15 more things to do in your already busy life, right? So if we can do
I'm calling you because I'm overwhelmed. Here's 40 things for you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, lady.
Right. So if you can focus on 10 to 20 minutes a day of a book or a podcast or, like I said, affirmations, meditation, some kind of self-care, of exercise, of, making one healthier meal a day if you eat out all the time, right? If you can do one thing a day, that's going to start to reset your mindset and change the way the brain chemistry is. And before you know it, these patterns, these habits start to change. And it's something you might not even notice, right? Because it's not tangible. It's not like you're noticing like when your fingernails grow and you go, oh, time to cut them. It's not something you're going to see and notice, but it's something that you will be able to look back and go, oh man, I haven't felt that feeling in a while. Or, gosh, that person sounds just like I used to sound. Right.
Yeah.
And now, and then
you start feeling empathy for people.
Working. Yeah. Or someone who used to be able to say bait you in an argument all of a sudden can't anymore. And you go, man, yeah, old me used to be able to do that, but no. Now I don't care. Right? You can say that, you can feel that. Doesn't affect me.
That sounds very similar to what I did myself. Mm-hmm. And it was one of my counselors, and they said, map out your perfect day. I was like, what? He's like, what would your perfect day look like?
Trying to get through the day.
Yeah, I just want to get through the day is what I want to do. But he had me map out everything, what my most absolute perfect day would look like, what time I would wake up to, what I would have for breakfast. I mean, just everything. It was just little tiny changes, and it wasn't changing my entire day. I wasn't trying to do like a life transformation, which what a lot of people try and do. They try, okay, I want to do this, and they go all in.
Right.
They wind up doing it for a day or two, and then it's too much. It's too complex. So they just quit, and they go back doing whatever it was they were doing before.
They get overwhelmed. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, and I'm telling you, mid-20s, and I'm sure you guys all know it, it's like a quarter life crisis where you look at your life and, when you're younger, which wasn't too long ago, you had all these ideas of what you wanted to do with your life, who you wanted to be, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of them haven't happened. So you say, I need to make radical changes. And then you decide to go on a bunch of diets and do a bunch of things. And it doesn't work because, like you said, you're doing it all at once. You get overwhelmed and then you're like, it's not working. I quit. Whereas, I've learned that the steady changes that I made, drinking more water, not blacking out drunk every night, things like that, they tend to make a bigger difference than just trying to do it all at once.
Yeah. So
I mean, it has to be sustainable, right? So if you look at, and back when I used to work with people specifically on like, food and as a health coach, it has to be sustainable. Any kind of changes that you're going to make, if there's a goal you want and working towards that goal, the changes that you make in order to get there need to work with your lifestyle, take you maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone, work within your lifestyle, but they have to be sustainable. Because if it's not sustainable, it's never going to last. But that comes down to also, you have to do the mindset work.
Right.
Because if you're just trying to, say, change your diet, or you're just trying to, get a promotion or start a business or just raise tiny humans, if you don't work on your own mindset nothing else is going to change.
Right.
If you want to attract that perfect partner, so what we were saying before, if you can't put your happiness on someone else, right? If you want to attract that perfect partner, you have to work on your own mindset and the boundaries you're going to set within the relationship that you're trying to attract. Yeah. Otherwise, whatever relationship you attract, this is why people say, I just keep attracting the same kind of person, right? And I went through a phase like that, and during my college years and my late 20s, where I kept dating guys who cheated on me over and over and over again. And I kept thinking, well, this one's different. This one's going to be, the one, or this one's not. He's so honest. He's not going to do. But every time they would. And it's because I was not working on myself.
Yeah, you were the same person.
See that I was worth more. I deserved more. I just kept attracting the same type of guy.
Yeah, I work on guys, and she'll never go for me because I don't have, Jason Statham body build. I don't look like this guy. I don't have that. I was like, man, you have to realize it doesn't matter.
Right.
And if you're not doing the self-work, like you said, if you're attracting the same kind of people over and over, it's because you're the same person. I'm not the same person I was when I was 16, and I attract different people, thank God. But it comes down to doing the self-work, doing the changes that you want. And if you have 1,000 goals for your life, maybe let's start with one. Maybe once you've mastered that, go to 2.
One thing that I've learned working business and in marketing and even in relationships, little tiny goals and little tiny things add up to big things later on.
Yeah, there's a saying, small hinges swing big doors, right? It's the little steps that add up, right? The penny saved is a penny earned, and the pennies add up to hundreds, right, down the road. And so, absolutely, the little steps. Okay, so any change has to be sustainable. Yeah,
the mountain becomes a valley with every raindrop. Little tiny things can equal big changes.
Yeah, every time. And that's how, like, if you look at, anyone who's had any kind of success, or anyone who's, been married for, the 50 years, they'll tell you what has kept this going isn't massive things like, oh, he bought me a car for our wedding anniversary or whatever, right? They hold my hand, or we kiss each other on the cheek every night before bed, or, whatever it is. It's the little things, the little daily things that nurture that relationship, that make it.
Right, like we're attracted to them in the first place. Maybe that'll help, instead of just, because I think a lot of people, when it comes to relationship, especially, and I'm no judgment passer, but especially when you kind of lie about who you are, like, and you say, I'm this person who's working on themselves, but really you're not. You're a couch potato, and you have no desire to work on yourself, and you present this enlightened or over the top figure, and really you're just somebody who drinks on a couch. It tends to screw up this person sees of you. So now, you are able to put up that front for 3 months, and you're able to lie about who you are. But after the 4th month, they finally start to see you, and you're like, how do we fix this? And maybe let that person be the person they originally pretended to be. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but if you're lying about who you are in the beginning, right, the truth is eventually going to come out. Old patterns are going to, if you're not doing the work to become the person that you're lying that you are, and those old patterns will come back because you haven't done the inner work, right?
Yeah, that reminds me of that guy that I was coaching, and he had finally hit it off, and I got called up to go and help. And I was like, so what's going on? Oh, she thinks I drive a Lamborghini and live in a mansion. I was like, okay, so where's the Lamborghini? It costs me $150 a day. I can't afford to rent it anymore. And you've been doing this for how long? 3 months?
Oh my gosh. What does he do for a living?
Well, and also I think, look at why I want to be with this person who values that, and you don't think would want to be with you if you couldn't afford this, right? So why are you killing yourself trying to be with this person who you don't feel would reciprocate that if you weren't?
Well, he thought in order to meet somebody of quality, he had to have this certain lifestyle that unfortunately the
rich
media
jackasses out
trains
there.
us. This is how you have to look. This is how you have to act. This kind of education you need. This is the job you need.
Right.
That's entertainment. That's movies. That's television. That's not real life.
Well, and again, that's where the doing the inner work, doing the self-care, doing the, the mindset work is so important, because you're able to shut all that down
that
and
out.
really get to the core of who you are and what you value and what you bring to a relationship and what you deserve in a relationship, right? And that if you feel like you have to lie about who you are and rent a $150 a day car or to be with someone, then maybe that isn't someone who is the person for you. Can you imagine, right? A whole life of that.
Yeah.
And then eventually when the money does run out because you've spent so much on the car, that you go, well, okay, now the whole lifestyle has to change drastically, right? And then what's going to happen to the relationship in that? When they go, why didn't you tell me that you couldn't afford it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, why did you even tell me you had it to begin with? I imagine would be... And then they break up with you, not because you don't have a Lamborghini, but because you're a freaking liar. That's what happens. And I think people confuse a lot of that stuff when it comes to dating. Like, you're not being broken up with because you don't have a Lamborghini. You're being broken up with because you lied for 3 months about having a Lamborghini. And you basically show that you're... And for lack of a better term, you're broken. And as somebody who has tried to date as an unwhole person, I recommend doing the steps self-care first. Because when you start to do the self-care because you got into a relationship, start to work on yourself because of this and that, it goes away when the relationship goes away. You go right back to who you were in the beginning. And that's happened to me, at least. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, you've got to, the self-care, taking care of yourself. Well, both me and Ashley both do it. Take care of yourself. But you also have to get inside your own head and realize and work on you are worth it. Don't be the doormat that agrees with everything and you just give everything away and cave into every little thing, especially if you don't like it.
Right. The people pleasing.
Right. It's exhausting.
The need to belong, right? We human beings want love, safety, belonging. That's why we do everything that we do. So, the need to belong, well, is this the right person to belong with?
Right.
Is this your person?
And don't be scared to step up and say, hey, what about me? You're picking everybody else, but what about me?
Yes.
You don't want to step up and do that because it's going to be at the cost of somebody else.
Right. Well, or there's a fear that if a lot of people are afraid to stand up for themselves because they feel like they're going to be shut down. Or they're afraid to stand up for themselves and say, well, what about me? Why not me too? Because they're going to lose this person. Where, again, if you do, that's not your person. As much as it might suck in the moment, it's not your person, right? But and then all of this, all of that, that's where in work I do with clients, and I don't just work with people in San Diego. Like, I have clients internationally all over. So we work with them not much like this over the phone or Zoom, and so we work on that inner child healing, right? Kids, we're told no all the time. We don't have the control to change it. Like, can I eat this? No, you cannot eat that. You need to have a healthy breakfast first, or whatever, right? And so, or can I have a sleep? My kids all the time, they come home from school on like a Wednesday night. We want to sleep over. No, it's a school night. You cannot sleep over tonight.
You
I will talk to her mom about sometime in the future. And B, you can't just throw this on me today because we have things to do. I'm a grown up and I have responsibilities, right? So, but kids are told no all the time and they don't have the control to change it, right? And adults like, well, I know I got to work, but sure, sleepover would be fun. Or how about a donut breakfast instead of yogurt or whatever, right? So you get to make some of those choices on your own, but we're told no so much as kids that it intricately gets ingrained into our brain. If I ask for what I want, I'm going to be told no.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be shot down, or I'm going to be made to feel like it's greedy or wrong, or I'm going to piss someone off. And right. So we have to be okay with asking for what we want. Maybe we get told no. And maybe that's something that we can control. Maybe we can find another way around it. Maybe we can be creative. Maybe we can think outside the box. Or is this realistic? Right? Yeah. And is this a person that is worth me being with?
Yeah.
So there's lots of different levels to that, but we work on that inner child, right? Giving that that piece of you, that love, that safety, belonging that maybe you didn't get into, to heal that now so that you can come into the next relationship as a whole person with the self-confidence that you want.
And I think there's a fear when it comes to self-care too. Like, you're afraid that if you, it's almost, if, you know, the fear of success, obviously, but you're afraid that if you start taking care of yourself, you're selfish. And that's kind of, it's backwards almost, you know, because you're not selfish for loving yourself. You're selfish, or you're selfish for not loving yourself and putting everyone else first. You're not treating yourself the way you need to be treated. And you're treating everyone else better than you. I think that's a big thing.
Right. Well, yeah, you have to fill your own bucket, right? That if you don't replenish your stores, that you eventually you get depleted and you have nothing left to give to others. So yeah, the self-care makes you a better partner. It makes you a better parent. It makes you a better friend. It makes you more mentally resilient to handle the stress. Makes you a better employee or business owner or whatever it is. If you don't put self-care practices into place, eventually you're going to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a fear of success.
It's a real thing. The fear of success is very real.
Classic sabotage, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, again, putting it in, so making it realistic and making it sustainable, right? In that, again, we're not talking about like hours a day, if you can fit, and I try to work with really busy people all the time. So I try to, as much as I want to say, like, let's not multitask and, can you wake up 20 minutes earlier and do a meditation? If you just can't, can you listen to a podcast on the car ride to work or the subway or whatever you take, the Uber ride to work, right? Can you pop your headphones in and listen to an audiobook? Can you, do that, while you're not driving, if you're driving, listen to a podcast, but if not, can you read while you're on the subway or the Bay Area? So we had BART up there, can you do something like that while you're on the road so that you're still getting self-care in, but where you're able to focus on it and then take that into your day with you, right? Take that into your day. Journaling is great. And in terms of like healing, one of my favorite things to do is what's called a write and burn. And so it's kind of kind of holistic exercise, right? I say, do this when you're on if you're a parent, do not do this when the kids are around because you want to be able to focus on you. So do this when, you have some 10 to 15 minutes of time where you're not going to be interrupted, right? And then you write down just everything. And it can be the kid that bullied you in third grade. You can, anything that comes to mind. It can be the guy that cut you off on the freeway or the promotion you were passed up for or anything. The person that broke up with you, great thing to write and burn about. And all the reasons you think that they said that they, you weren't enough for them or whatever. And just, I let my handwriting get messy. F-bombs are on the page. I'll scribble all over it. You feel those feelings of frustration and anger and just kind of get it out, cry if you need to. And then once you got it all on all the paper, burn it. Yeah. And do it in like a, I would highly suggest like an aluminum or a steel, something that can hold fire, but not like, I don't do it inside my house. Like in
don't
the
do
fireplace.
it inside the house. Cause I'm just picturing that episode of Friends where they did the ex-boyfriend burning and then they got the fireman. Then on the way out, the fireman is, I'm not going to tell my wife about that.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, but also like energetically too, though, if you're burning in for an energetic release, like I don't want the smoke or the energy, that energy to be carried back into my home. Right. So I will do this outside. If you live where like it's snowing or whatever, like, if you can withstand being outside for 5 minutes while it burns or 2 minutes while it burns, do that. And so, but you watch it. You gotta watch it burn. That's the big piece of it. And just breathe deep, breathe out, and let it go. And some things that are cut a little deeper or you've been holding on to for longer, you may need to write and burn about multiple times. right? But like the guy that cut you off on the freeway yesterday probably is the one who's done, right?
Yeah.
But some
Unless it was the
relationship
ex-husband.
stuff, probably you might need to do it again next week or next month, or if it comes up again. If you find yourself in a high emotional state where you're just like, you know, having a moment, that's a good time to just do it, write it out and burn it, and you'll feel a lot better at the end.
We used to do that in it's more of our teenage martial arts classes. We wouldn't burn it, but we would tape it to the punching bags or the punching mitts. Just see if you agree with me on it or not. But if you're in constant reaction mode, instead of taking control of your life, if you're constantly reacting to what the other person is doing, you're never in complete power.
You're also never listening either. People who are in reaction mode are never actually listening. They're listening for one word. Like, you're listening for the word that's going to piss you off just so you can explode. And that's how reaction mode works. And like you said, you're giving the other person power over your thoughts because you're waiting.
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, reaction mode is a powerless state to be in, right? But I mean, in kind of everything we do is a reaction. Like, not reacting is a reaction, right? So it's the type of reaction that we do that either gives us our power or takes our power away. And you know, and then there's people who, you know, like manipulators, they'll initiate a reaction in you really good, right? And you don't even know what's happening, and then they're sitting back watching it blow up all over the place, kind of smiling at themselves, right? But like, or they'll do it just so they get their way, and they don't care about what happens when all the other people are in a pile, you know, in the fetal position all around the room, but they're standing there going, well, I got what I wanted, right? So I think it comes down to like empathy for others, and again, being calm and confident enough in yourself so that if someone is trying to initiate a reaction, like, you can kind of catch that and go, oh no, they're just trying to initiate a reaction in me. So, you know, I'm not gonna play the game, right? Everybody's winning the game they're playing. So that manipulator is one game when you're in the fetal position on the floor and they're going, did it, right? They've won that game. And, you know, have you won or lost the game you're playing, right? The game you're playing, if it's, again, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, completely dependent, your happiness is completely dependent on that person's happiness. Yeah. Well, even if you're in the fetal position on the floor, in essence, you've won the game because they're happy.
Right.
Right? Yep. So we have to change that game.
That goes right back to having that positive mindset, making the choice to make that mindset permanent.
Right. And the self-care and the self-confidence. Yeah. Right? So that your happiness doesn't depend on that person's happiness. So if they're playing that game, that you can still be happy when they're the one in the fetal position, right? When they didn't get their way this time, they didn't manipulate and bait you into the argument just to get their way, that you were able to either diffuse the situation or change the subject or walk away and not bait into the toxicity. Yeah. That this time it's a different reaction than they wanted to get. So then you win the game, right? Yeah.
Because sometimes being in a bad relationship, you actually feel more alone than if you were just by yourself.
Yeah. And the fear of change is what keeps people to stay. Right? Fear of change is very scary.
Kind of like getting that new career. Doing a major career change is scary. But once you're out there and you're in the job, you start figuring it out. And he's like, what was I scared of?
Once you take the step into change, it becomes not so scary. And you look back and go, well, what was I so afraid of? But we like to play up all the worst case scenarios in our own heads. And so to be able to just go one, like much like we're talking about with the small hinges and big doors, right? One step at a time. Just do the one next thing and the one next thing and the one next thing. And so there you are.
And then when you look back on the time, it's always perfect. Like, no matter what you were wearing, no matter what you were doing, when you look back on that time, in that moment, like, you're like, it was perfect. And it didn't matter what you had on. It's because you met that person who you loved. And it was just, you know, we could have ran into each other at the laundromat and I had just only my paint stained sweatpants on. It was the best moment of your life. So waiting is dumb because anytime you have that moment, it's going to be perfect. That's pretty profound.
With self-care and your own mental health, now is the time. If you need to talk to a counselor, if you're in doubt, from my own personal experience, go talk to them. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's worse later, and you're going to have a whole heck of a lot more work to do than if you just go talk to them now.
Well, Sharla, as you can see, we talk up a storm around here. But we know the time has come to an end, and that you have a child and it's a weekday. So before she brings her friends over for a sleepover, do you have anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with before we let you go?
Oh, I mean, thank you guys so much for having me. You know, I love to keep these conversations going. So, find me on social media and want to send me a message. You know, I'm happy to answer questions and help out in any way that I can. I am going to be starting a web series on YouTube that's coming out end of January, and so first few episodes coming out, and it's all around this topic of self-love and care and self-empowerment. And so if there's more that you want to learn, and they're all set to be 10 to 15 minutes long so that you can listen to them on the car ride to work, and you can, get your PD in for the day and get that self-care going so that you can start to figure out, how to just be, get out of the funk, right? One thing I keep hearing is I'm in a funk, I'm just in a funk, I'm in a funk. So my mission is to help people get out of that funk and be able to really love and enjoy their lives and embrace those imperfections. So embrace the chaos, embrace those imperfections, and just be you and live your life.
If you want to get in touch directly, you can go out to Radiant Sunrise Wellness. You've got all kinds of different programs. You've got the individual programs, the personal training, the fitness, nutrition. You've got group programs for small groups, offices and corporate, women's empowerment retreats. So you pretty much fit anybody that is looking for something like that. And speaking from personal experience, from what I've gone through, this is the type of thing that I went through. That's pretty much how I got to where I am today. So I can speak from personal experience. This stuff does work. Yes,
it really does. And it just takes commitment, small steps, and just making that commitment to you, right? Make the commitment to yourself. And it's not selfish. And it's nothing to feel guilty about, because it makes you better able to take care of those around you.
Exactly. Thank you again for just coming out here and just really working with everybody. And in case anybody forgot her name, it's Sharla Mandere. Mandere. Oh my gosh, I did it again.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew you were going to say it wrong. I feel vindicated. Mandere. I don't feel as dumb now. It's not just me.
I'm going to have to do a second take on that.
Nope. I need everyone to hear it.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome. Charlie, you have been wonderful and a trooper for putting up with us. We thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was such a blast.
Mandere. Oh my gosh.
That's all for this episode of the Girls Ask Guys show, where all of us learn to master this thing called life together. For more answers to your questions on life and love, be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss a single episode. And head to girlsaskguyshow.com to submit your questions for a future episode or apply to be a guest on the show. Good luck out there, and we'll catch you next time, right here on the Girls Ask Guys show.